Well, 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 well. Welcome. Welcome back to Fantasy Football, but I'm playing Minecraft also. The Fantasy Football Show, nay, the best fantasy football show that involves a person playing Minecraft simultaneously while also. Today's episode is going to cover the Thursday night football game that occurred between the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. And we're going to talk about the games that are coming up on Sunday and Monday. We're going to cover, kind of the outlook for each of those games and some of the start and sit, what do you call it? Some of the variables that might make you start and sit players, and I'll give my suggestions, etc. Yeah, I made a diamond pickaxe. So, anyway, moving on. I'm gonna go do stuff with the diamond pickaxe here, but for firsties, let's talk about the New York Jets and the New England Patriots playing on Thursday Night Football. We gotta start with the Jets, right? That's the team you probably mostly care about from fantasy perspective. I mean, this Jets team looked good. I would say they looked like we hoped they would look coming into the season. Aaron Rodgers, playing like the days of old. They wanted to establish the run and the short passing game early. They want to use the play action game that they can build off of the running attack to get a little bit more downfield. But they're really a team that's content with a little bit at a time kind of plays, and they look great doing it. I mean, they have, man, what a running back duo do they have, right? Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, it looks like an elite duo. I mean, Breece Hall's catching the ball like a high-level wide receiver, and I think Aaron Rodgers is kind of treating him like a high-level wide receiver. They're both going to be in the game a lot, and I think that actually caps the upside of both of these players. But with that said, the usage itself is great. For Breece Hall, he had that rolling touchdown where he was kind of rolling sideways. That was very cool. Oh, I see. That's what's making that noise. This guy. I hope you picked up Braylon Allen before this week, especially if you have Breece Hall on your team. He is looking like the most elite of all, the most elite running back 2 on his team out of anyone except Jordan Mason, really. I mean, you want to talk about a high-value understudy player who at the same time also gives you standalone value in games. I mean, wow. He looks good. He can run, he's no joke. And, like I said, he's going to cap Breece Hall's ceiling a little bit. But, what was I saying? Yeah, those guys are awesome. I mean, I'm down a little bit on Breece Hall just because of Braylon Allen, but I still think they're both gonna do good, and it's a big part of why this Jets team I think is gonna do good, and it's a big part of why Aaron Rodgers, sorry, it's a big part of why Aaron Rodgers looks like a fantasy startable quarterback, which is not something we necessarily expected. Coming into the first few weeks, we hoped it might look like that, but considering how much of the running back involvement in the passing game ends up actually, like that helps Aaron Rodgers because those count for his yards too. Alan Lazard, I overestimated him and then underestimated him. What the hell? What the hell? This dude is... What's wrong with you, dude? We got to watch to see how it looks over another week or two for any of the Jets receivers. I mean, I like Alan Lazard. He has yards after the catch ability. He didn't get a ton of targets. If he didn't have a touchdown, it might not have been too much of a game, but he does seem to have that rapport with Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's real. And so I don't hate him as a bench player for your team who you start every once in a while. Again, that yards after the catch stuff, and Mike Williams is presumably the long ball target on this team. He also has some maybe not every week starter, but put him in there every once in a while kind of mojo. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Tyler Conklin or Ty Conklin. I assume it's Tyler. Ty Conklin. Speaking of players after 1 week, or 2 weeks even, we might have underestimated. he gets when Rodgers gets a little off schedule, he's rolling out of the pocket or he's scrambling or whatever. Oh, hello. Okay. Ty Conklin is the guy who is getting open in those situations. So I think there's some real value there in just kind of like he may be somebody that you can play at tight end a lot of weeks, more weeks than not. It's not a perfect situation, but it may be a situation where we still want this guy as our tight end. So yeah, Ty Conklin stock up. Definitely feeling like he might be a low end tight end one if he can maintain this kind of usage where he gets he's in a lot of plays, he's running a lot of routes. Come here, fish. You go down. Sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, I think he's startable. I think he has floor relative to a lot of tight ends. It might not be great floor, but it's not nothing. It's something, which is more than nothing. Something that is. Something that's more than nothing. Doodle-doot. What's next? Who else on this team? Well, we got to talk about Garrett Wilson. It's not looking great relative to where you drafted him. I'll be honest. The touchdown saved his fantasy day. But with that said, Aaron Rodgers even said something after the game, and Garrett Wilson was on the post-game show there. By the way, I don't really, I don't think it's cool that all the games are on different streaming services now and different cable and all that stuff. But if you are watching the games on Prime, shout out to the Nikki Glazer the Nikki Glazer post-game roast kind of. She did this little mini thing where she, had jokes and insults, and it was actually pretty funny. It was actually, I'd say it's worth sticking around for. Now that I know it happens, I'm hoping it'll happen every game, and I'll stick around for it. If I'm watching on Prime, and if you're doing the same. But what was I saying? So Garrett Wilson was on the post-game show, and I'm not worried about the vibes. I think that the vibes are going to be fine there. He's an elite player, but his opportunity ceiling is obviously all the other weapons on that team and how that team plays. Like I said, they want to win 4 or 5 yards at a time. You know what I mean? That's what they're doing. And I think he's a little bit mercurial as a player, but I think they're going to be just fine. So Garrett Wilson's still kind of a buy low, but I think you have to temper your expectations from the hype where you drafted him at his ceiling. I think you did draft him at his ceiling this year, and I think that he's not going to have as much opportunity for that ceiling as we thought. But I think he's still a solid wide receiver 2 for your team. And this was, he'll have a few games like this. He might have 1 or 2 without a touchdown where he really does score 6 points for your team and you're bummed out, 5 points for your team. But he's going to be fine too. I think he's going to build chemistry with Rodgers, and they're going to really start to work well together as the season goes on. Not worried about that. I guess the only other person we should talk about in this offense, I'm sorry to say, is Greg Zuerlein. I have these. I was already out on Greg Zuerlein. I'm thinking, I got the books over in the other building. I think you drop Greg Zuerlein. The ball just looks funny when it comes off his foot. I'm serious. It's not even me just, he burned me before in the past, and so I don't want him on my teams. But, man, he seems like he's a little washed. And I think the team might, emphasis on might, even avoid kicking field goals to some extent because of how bad Zuerlein is right now. I think that there's a real chance that this turns into a situation where he's the weak link in the offense. It's just not consistent enough. They don't trust him enough, so they minimize, the kicks that he ends up taking. And he's just going to miss them, and they're not going to give him all the 50-plus yarders because he's late in his career now, and he's like Justin Tucker. He's just losing a little bit off of whatever his height, his peak was, and now he's just going to be that guy. No one wants to listen to my... So, drop him. There's so many good kickers. Unfortunately, for my take, he does have a good matchup next week, so there's that. Right. Yeah, come gather around while I tell you about the New England Patriots. You still don't care. Yeah, I don't blame you. So the Patriots, Their offensive line held up okay against this Jets rush. It gives them somewhat of a chance to complete plays. They're clearly a bad offense in the grand scheme of things, but I really do think that there's like against a bad team, they're probably going to be okay as an offense. They had some decent play calling. It wasn't like their offense was too conservative or anything. Like they did their best with what they had. I think as an upside guy in the future, you want maybe Demario Douglas. He had 9 targets in this game, I believe. It was in games where they have to play catch up, maybe like this one, he might be a good choice. Hunter Henry let you down if you jumped on the bandwagon after his big game. I still think we have to look at his snap count, his route share or whatever. I wonder if Austin Hooper is in there too much and holding him back a little bit. Hooper had the one nice play, but generally speaking, it looks like Henry is, the tight end to have here. It's just, I don't know if he's a little boom bust. I'm still not, he's not going to maybe have the same offensive opportunity as someone like Conklin or even like Mike Gesicki or Jonnu Smith or other kind of people that have, players that people look at as wavered tight ends. He's going to get the target volume, and that's what you put in for. But I don't know. It's a trade-off there, whether you go with someone. I mean, like Conklin this game obviously showed out, but you know what I mean? With players who might still not have as much of a floor, and you want Hunter Henry for the floor, but he showed you today that floor is, you're going to get plenty of floor games probably, or at least floor games against good defenses in situations like this. I'll pass on everyone in that offense, honestly. Ramondre Stevenson, unfortunately, I mean, he really let you down from a fantasy perspective. I think in general he's going to be more matchup and game script dependent than we hoped. After week 1 and 2, it was kind of like, oh yeah, this guy's game script proof a little bit or matchup proof a little bit. But I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately. I think, he's going to have a little bit of trouble in games like this. I don't know if he was hurt, but he really didn't play much at all in the second half. That's something to monitor. It was Antonio Gibson a lot in the second half, and they think they have another guy who came in for a few carries. I don't know his name, but Drake May did a drive at the end of the game. They brought him in for just the last drive, and I don't think we learned a lot, except we learned that in general, obviously when Drake May does take over as the starter, it will be at least there's at least a chance that will boost everybody else on this offense. So that's, something to look forward to if you're a Patriots fan, something to look forward to if for whatever reason you're holding these guys, or, if you have Ramondre Stevenson, who still is obviously, I think, a decent player for your team. Oh, these guys are throwing potatoes around. Okay. I think I figured this out. So now we're going to get into our starts and sits for the week of week 3. Well, at least for all the games, not counting Thursday, obviously. Week 3 starts and sits, and I'm gonna let's start. Let's start with the Giants and the Browns. So this is a game expected to be a reasonably low-scoring game, which I can get behind. The Browns are actually favored pretty big in this game. I expect the Browns to take a step forward in contending for this division, and kind of let's just go with right here. Boop. I expect them to take a step forward. I expect them to really show that they're, at least at the division level, a contender. For the Giants, I would prefer to sit everyone, if I'm being honest. Malik Neighbors, I know, has been great, and I think if you start him, that's okay. He and Singletary, if you must start somebody, those are both players, I'd prefer to sit. But yeah, I guess they both could get it going on. For the Browns, the big starts of the week are just the defense and the kicker, if I'm being honest. Those are the smash plays. I think Deshaun Watson and the wide receivers on this team, and probably the running backs on this team. Oh God, this is okay. I think all those guys are very startable this week, but I think they're also relatively boom bust for different reasons. I think that we're looking at a situation where Deshaun Watson maybe has a big game, throws for a bunch, and kind of takes care of business. Maybe that's how this goes down. Jerry Jeudy is seems to have the most chemistry right now going with Deshaun Watson. Seems to be a decent play. I still don't. Oops, wrong one. I still don't love it. I'm still not a huge fan of getting any of the, and I don't know which of the the running backs to choose either. But these Browns players, I think, are gonna, they're not gonna be terrible. They're gonna be okay this year overall. And again, if the team is taking a step forward towards contending for this division, then then great. This is the week that you get some of that benefit starts to show up for your fantasy team. But you could start Amari Cooper. The vibes still aren't great there. You can start you can start anybody, but you could definitely start one of the running backs if you can figure out which one you want to start. I guess that's the hardest part, I think, is figuring out which one you want to start. But you can, you definitely can start those guys. And it's fine, I guess. So yeah, I would avoid most of those guys. I think Watson's an okay play, but I don't think it's a great play. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Let's just start here. Oh, now I'm stuck in here. I didn't think of that. Watch this. Square in the middle, and then you can jump out, and the animals can't. The Eagles and the Saints. Are the Saints for real? What are you doing in here? You don't need wheat. The Saints, are they a real contender? Can they keep up the offensive production that they get the hell out of here, that they showed in the prior game? That's what we're here to see. That's one of the things we're here to see. I do expect this to be more of a shootout type of thing. I think the Saints defense is good, but that Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith may have good games, all of them, or at least some of them certainly. And Dallas Goedert too. He might be needed in this game, needed in the pass game. Obviously, A.J. Brown misses again. The Saints, they impose their will on the offensive line in the run game in particular this past week. So I'm excited to see whether okay. Oh, these guys are all wandering. Okay, I need more these fences. Okay, I'm gonna make more fences. If they can do that on the line of scrimmage and keep the run game just like dominant the way it looked last time, then that's a situation. Oh, I already have plenty of those. That's a situation where I'm obviously it's just another good game for Kamara in that situation, but I'm not sure that's exactly how it's going to go down. It sounds like the Eagles' run defense was bad in the last couple games. They went against good running backs, the Falcons and the Packers, so it's not like if that's the case and they can just run the ball like crazy, maybe it's another game where they don't pass that much. But with that said, it sounds like the pass defense for the Eagles hasn't been so great either, or at least it's the pass rush hasn't been dominant per se. And so if Derek Carr has time to throw to everybody that he wants to throw to, that bodes well for all these guys, including Carr himself, obviously. Let's do all of them, sure. So that's a situation where I like pretty much all the pass catchers on this team. Obviously, when I say all, I really just mean mostly Rashid Shaheed and our favorite Chris Olave. Both of those guys look like they're going to be good to go. Good enough. I like Olave, I like Shaheed, Derek Carr, start them all. I think this might be a competitive game, a close game, but it's still a game, that even if the Eagles, do show that, hey, we're really legit and we can shut down this Saints team a tad from where they were most of the season, that it's still gonna, be a game where you can get a lot of value out of the Saints players, because the offense that they showed in the first few weeks is still, that's their offense. Like that's, even if it, oh God, this is, okay, wait, I should do this better. Even if it's not, perfect, even if it's got a few flaws that we start to discover as this season goes on a little further. Oops, that's not quite right either, is it? Yeah. Even if that's the case, we're still going to be wanting to play this team. I think their floor is still high enough that you're pretty stoked to be playing those players. Yeah. Okay, I gotta go to bed. Run back to your house. I should bring a bed. Lord knows I got the materials to make a bed. I've got a bed. I can go to sleep. I can go to sleep. I can breed some sheep with my wheat. I got a bed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. OMG, where are you going? Come home, please. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You two can go in here. It's pretty cool to go in here. Here we go. Go in here. Here we go. Go. Now stay. No, come through. Don't go back out. Come through. Come through the door. All the way through. There you go. And then boom. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. But you guys can make a baby. That's fine. Moving on. So we got the Texans. Are you stuck in here now? Because you're so huge. What's your deal? The Texans of Houston, the Houston Texans, playing against my own Minnesota Vikings. At Minnesota, I believe. Are the Vikings a for real contender, just like we just said with the Saints? We're going to find out for sure this week because they're going up against a team that has the markings of a young contender who's got the skills to pay proverbial bills. No, you get the hell out. You go out. You don't live here. Thank you. But you do. And you're just a baby, so you grow up. This is a game where we're going to find out from the perspective of the Texans. We're going to find out how dangerous this Vikings defense really is. If it is truly, a top-rate defense like it's been looking so far, and whether that defense is going to do enough to slow down or to stop these pass catchers. In this game, I think Nico Collins is the safest. I know he had a questionable tag, and so there's a little bit of, question as to whether or not he's going to actually be out there in this game. I don't really care if you guys all fit in here. It's nice if you do, but I don't need it. I can live without it. If Mixon plays, do we like that? I think so. If Mixon's out and Dameon Pierce is out and you're desperate, do you start Cam Akers? Cows? What do you think? It's so crowded in here. I'm going to kill this sheep. Don't take it personal, sheep. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a game where you can start any of these players. The over-under's decently high, but not crazy high. So, consider that, it's not expected to necessarily be a big shootout. But, I guess we'll see. I want to try to figure out a way to get him out of here. I think there's a good chance that this is a game where, the Minnesota's defense does not have the dominance it had in the last couple of matchups it had. So it could be a perfectly good game for any of the Texans wide receivers. It's a Stephon Diggs revenge game, I guess, maybe. But even it is apparent, from what I read at least, that Stephon Diggs has the best cornerback matchup, of these receivers for this game. So there is some potential for Diggs to do it. I think, Nico Collins can do it. And obviously at any given week, Tank Dell can do it. I'm feeling like he's just a little, I'm a little scared to start him right now, to be frank. I just think his role is a little too volatile right now. But, if there's one weakness in the Texans offense we talked about last time, it's probably the offensive line. And if the offensive line is an issue in this game, then we may have suppressed passing outcomes for the wideouts. They may end up, in other words, running the ball or keeping the, just having a lower scoring game in general. As for the Vikings, it sounds like Justin Jefferson is guaranteeing himself at least that he's going to be playing in this game. So if that's the thing, then oops, that's not what I meant to do. If that's the thing, then great. I think you're in a position where you obviously start Justin Jefferson every week regardless. Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor are interesting. It sounds like Addison is only going to end up playing, I don't know what chance Addison has of playing, but if Addison plays, I think he's a good player to start. I don't know. It could be shootout-y, and they're going to need to throw the ball. It feels like Aaron Jones or Ty Chandler or both could thrive, but more so because of the short passing game and being involved in the pass game. I guess the idea is that the run defense for the Texans is good. So I don't expect the Vikings to dominate on the ground, but as passing outlets, those running backs I think could be good. So I'm fine with starting all those guys. I just think it'll be a decently high-scoring game. Keep in mind, it could be a Daniil Hunter revenge game, and it could be the first game where the Vikings face pressure, and they do face high-level cornerbacks, so it could be a game where if the Vikings offense, has some flaws, we'll start to see those show up against this defense. If Sam Darnold, has some issues, we might see him this week. So just be wary of that, I guess, going into it. Next up, the Chargers and the Steelers. This is, I think, the lowest over-under out of any of the games I saw. This is expected to be a very low-scoring game. This is probably literally the epitome of a defensive battle where, all you expect really is that both defenses are going to really put up points in fantasy, or at least, be involved in deciding the game ultimately. I think that I think that this is the kind of situation where, from the perspective of the game overall, I think the Chargers offense and whether they're actually going to be reasonably productive this year is the kind of thing that, we'll be able to see in this game. My sense is that they will be. My sense is that this is a game where you want the Chargers offensive players to actually start. But you never know. It would be disrespectful to the Steelers defense to assume that, just because they seem like they're a slightly less competent team, that they're going to therefore, have issues. I think they'll be just fine. And I think that you're looking at a game where it will be a low-scoring game. We're not going to get big points from either offense. With that said, I think, I think you sit more players than usual on both sides of the ball in this game. But with that said, I think there is a case for a big game for the Chargers passing game, just because I think, they're going to have probably a lot of opportunities out there if their defense can do good. The Chargers have a good offensive line, but the Steelers have a good defense. So if Justin Herbert has time, can he pick apart the secondary? That's the thing I think we might be looking at here in this game, is that, it's a game where Justin Herbert just basically starts picking apart that secondary, given time to throw. And he may not have a big productive game, but that's going to give them the advantage in time of possession and give them a chance to just mount drive after drive. So, I don't know. I don't know if they'll be able to run as effectively against the Steelers team, the Chargers. I don't know if they'll be able to run against the Steelers team as effectively as they've run the last couple weeks, but this is a good opportunity to see just how good J.K. Dobbins really is this year. Because if they can run against this team and they can really, kick their butts, I think you're looking at a situation where J.K. Dobbins, man, you get real excited. So, I think Quentin Johnston is a sit this week, even though I think in general he's somebody I'm really high on. He's somebody who I think you do want to grab on your waivers. I think the ideal situation is that you can sit him this week. And that's because he gets Joey Porter Jr., it might not be a shutdown corner, but he's definitely a high-level cornerback here. And I just don't think that, again, it's not necessarily going to be a high pass volume game. And while there is a case, like I said, where Herbert gets out there and starts picking apart the defense, I think there's also plenty of chance that it's just a low-scoring, low-passing volume game, and you just don't want to start these receivers. McConkey, even more so, would be a sit for me than Quentin Johnston, but I think they're both sits for me right now. From the Steelers' perspective, I think this is a game where they have an aggressive defense, and they're hoping that Justin Fields can operate, can kind of just keep this team in the game, basically. I think it might be okay for Justin Fields. It sounds like the Chargers may be vulnerable against the run, so and the screen game, which was probably what they're going to try to do a lot anyway. So it could be okay for Najee. It could be okay for Jalen Warren. I'd rather sit those guys personally because I think this is just going to be a low-scoring game. And it's not an ideal situation for the downfield stuff for for George Pickens, obviously the Chargers do have a strong defense and a good pass rush with two high-level, edge rushers and a good interior defensive line, I believe. But I think Pickens is actually kind of matchup proof at this point. At least he may not be like perfectly matchup proof, but at least he's most of the way there. So I feel fine starting Pickens too. I also feel fine, especially if he doesn't have a big game here, but he at least has like an okay game and he's involved. Like I'm still buying low on him. I still think he's kind of the guy you wanna have on your team. I wonder if I can jump in this way. Yes. So yeah, I like George Pickens this game, and Pat Fryermuth even, he could be a risky play, but he may have a decent floor if they do try and pass, which I think they will if they have to, which I think is not not that unlikely of an outcome. I think this Chargers team has a decent level of skill, and that they may put up a couple touchdowns pretty quickly and make the Steelers play from behind. So moving on, the Broncos play the Buccaneers. This is a game I expect the Buccaneers to come out and try to show that they're a real contender. They may also be lax and take it easy, and that may be a surprise. Broncos keep it close, and we may see something from the Broncos this week that we didn't expect, considering the last couple weeks were so bad for them. What else do I want to do? I guess it depends on that. I guess I'm just chilling right now, huh? Yeah, I suppose so. Okay. I think we're ready to go into the Nether. Let's just do it. Let's see how it goes. I think from the Buccaneers' perspective... Oh, 1 second. Is that better? Yeah, microphone's closer. I think from the Bucs' perspective, the biggest issue is that they may not need to do too much. Rachaad White is I guess, questionable for this game. I don't know. It seems like he's trending towards he's playing. I'll see how it goes. I think the biggest issue there, again, is that, Rachaad White is... Oh, wait. The biggest issue is... Oh, God. Right away, right? Right off the bat like that? For real? Back at you, buddy. Back at you, buddy. Back at you, buddy. Oh, I got you. How about them apples? Where's the other guy? You want some of this? Where are you? Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. You want some of this? Oh, no. Now there's a skeleton, too? Oh, this one. Dead. Here we go. Okay, don't fall. Okay. Okay. No problem. No problem. We got this. We got this. Wow. Spawned into a kind of dangerous place here. Hi. There we go. Okay, now I can do what I want to do first, which is build a little cage around this. So yeah, I think the thing to note here, let's start with the running backs. I'm sorry I got distracted there. Yeah, I think Rachaad White is questionable to play, but if he does play, this is a decent game just because they may not have to pass. They may want to lean on the run. Rachaad White's been getting it done in the pass game more than the run game, but I think, he's still a fine start. And Bucky Irving, if you believe that, he's gonna usurp more of that run game role, this is a good game to get him in there and see what he does. But I don't know. I kind of... The Buccaneers feel like a pass-first team to me, so I'm not super high on any of the running backs, even in a good to great matchup like this. I guess the way I would go is Chris Godwin's my biggest start. The thing with Mike Evans is that he gets Patrick Surtain, the highly talented sort of shutdown corner who seems to have suppressed the yardage of the number one receiver on the other team for both of the last couple games. So I wouldn't necessarily say sit Mike Evans, but if you have like a really deep team, then maybe you do sit Mike Evans in this one. I don't know. I think he's an okay start just because he's such an elite player, and because they're probably gonna have the ball a lot. So even with Surtain, they're not gonna be able to completely shut down Mike Evans. The Broncos do have a bit of a pass rush, but apparently Mayfield's been really good under pressure so far this year. So I'm not worried about the defense holding back the Buccaneers. I mean, they're a good defense overall. But it depends if the Broncos suddenly have this major step forward in their offense. If they don't, which I don't expect them to have a major step forward as an offense, But presuming that they don't, I think, you're fine starting any of the Bucs players. I wouldn't start any of the Broncos. Probably, I mean, you could start Javonte Williams as your kind of like, I don't know, maybe he has a big game just because he kind of, I don't know what he would have to do to have a big game. Just break off a long run or two. Cortland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, these are guys that might just have a big game, keeping the Broncos in this game if Bo Nix can actually throw a little better and they can protect him a little bit. But I wouldn't bank on that. They feel like dart throws to me. Moving on, the Packers play the Titans. This is another game that's expected to be a pretty low-scoring, pretty defensive game. I got to be careful not to die here, so I'm a little distracted. You might consider this cheating. I don't consider it cheating. The fog doesn't let you see very far in this game in the Nether, so I turn off the fog. Where was I? The Packers and the Titans, a defensive showdown. It's another game that's kind of got a who wants it more quality, I think. I think this is one where I'm looking at the Packers as the team that's really a more legit, team in the longer term sense, and they're more ready. They're more ready for being a competitor this year. So I think that this will be, it could be a back and forth game. It could be a game where luck decides it ultimately because the defenses are, mainly holding it down. From the perspective of the Packers, they're going up against, I guess, a middle of the road kind of run defense, not a top tier run defense apparently, but a middle of the road one. So I would be happy with Josh Jacobs out there. It might be a tougher game for them overall if the Titans offense actually shows up, which in spite of what we think we've seen so far, with regard to Will Levis making a lot of mistakes, I think there really is a legitimate chance that the Titans show up this game and that Levis does take a step forward as a player. Getting ahead of myself, though, for the Packers, I think, as with the last game that they win this by scheming well, presuming Malik Willis is starting and not that Jordan Love's not back. I think they win this game because they scheme well, because they manage to kind of use their play calling advantage. It probably involves a good amount of running, but I think it also, hey, there's a boat. Boom. Ha. Now what are you going to do? Nothing. That's right. Walk away. I think that, if the Packers can actually get a passing game going in this game, then they can probably run also. And, so I think this is a situation where both of those things probably will happen. And, I don't know. You'd be fine to start the Packers players. Obviously, there's not really any receivers you want to start if Malik Willis is still at quarterback here. And I think that you should hold off on those guys. But Josh Jacobs is obviously a start. And, we just wait to see if Jordan Love comes back, I think, is really what this comes down to. If Jordan Love does play this game, then, you can play him and start to play other players in the passing game. I wouldn't count on any of that, though. From the perspective of the Titans going against what seems to be a tough defense, turnover-causing defense, a good fantasy defense, the fantasy defense that's good for you to start this week, by the way, that is the Packers. We'll see if Levis can take that step forward as a player. He's going to have to, be able to beat pressure, and their O-line has not been the best at protecting him thus far. Calvin Ridley gets Jair Alexander, probably, the cornerback for the Packers. I don't think this is a pure shutdown situation, so I think Ridley could be okay. It depends kind of how this game goes also in terms of how many points get scored. If it's really low scoring, Ridley's probably going to do okay in terms of opportunity regardless, but if we're in a situation where the whole game is extremely low scoring, then that's not ideal, because that means the Titans can probably keep it in the run game. On that note, Tony Pollard seems like the number one guy. I don't know if Tyjae Spears is expected to miss this game, but if he is, obviously that's a bump up for Pollard. I think I heard that Spears is back or close to back. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. Sorry, I didn't look into that before I was doing this. I wouldn't want to start those guys. Although, suppose this is where early season you can have some early season data that may not mean much. So, on the surface, on paper, the Packers are susceptible to the run. Right, the run game is a weakness of their team. But then, if you stop and look at who they actually played, they played against Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor, two of the arguably best, most elite running backs in the entire NFL. So, from my perspective, they might not be that bad against the run. They might have just played against really good running backs. Tony Pollard isn't those guys. He's not bad. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he's not those guys. So I would not be super excited for Tony Pollard this game. If anything, I think he could have a bit of a game like Ramondre Stevenson had just earlier tonight. Maybe not that bad, but the point is they may not be on the field a whole ton if the Packers can sustain drives. They may not be able to, just run the ball a lot. But I think he's okay. I'm overstating the negative case, I think he'll be okay. Moving on, the Chicago Bears go to Indianapolis, I believe, to face the Colts. This is, I guess, expected to be a decently low-scoring game, which I think it could be a surprise. It could be surprisingly higher scoring than we see on paper. It depends on if the Bears can put it together a little bit and if the Colts can put it together a little bit on offense against a strong Bears defense. Starting with the Colts players, they're going to need to find success with the run, probably, considering the passing defense of the Bears is pretty good and aggressive, the kind of defense that'll intercept Anthony Richardson in this game potentially. But they need to find success in the run game, so you start Jonathan Taylor, obviously. You start Anthony Richardson, I think, also. And if they do actually get that success going in the run game, they might be able to pass. And, yeah, I think Pittman might thrive regardless of game script in this one. Maybe if just because they have to throw short passes a lot. I don't know, dude. You don't actually live in this village, do you? It's fine. You can live here if you want to, but I just don't think you want to because, you're a wandering trader. It's your nature to wander. And then Alec Pierce he seems to be in a safe role, I guess. He's an outside receiver, and Josh Downs is coming back in this game, but I think Downs is expected to play in the slot with Adonai Mitchell. This is a game where Pierce might have another bomb score or whatever, but it's not an easy defense. So I would be sitting these guys more often than not if I can, or more. Put some stuff away. More than I would, more than I'd be excited to start them. I'd be looking for reasons to keep them on my bench, I think. So yeah, I think that's true. Oh, I got a gassed head. That's cool. Yeah. Awesome. Moving on to the Bears. Well, I think the question is whether the Bears can follow the same script that the Packers used last week to succeed against the Colts, which was run the ball a gazillion times and kind of protect your quarterback from turnovers. The Bears don't have Josh Jacobs, so maybe the answer is no, they can't follow that script. DeAndre Swift, there's a non-zero chance he has a big game. There's a non-zero chance Caleb has a big game too. My preference would be to wait and see with both those guys and not start them, but I think you're okay to start Swift. I think Caleb Williams is a good, if someone dropped him in your league, he's a decent speculative pickup, somebody that you just kind of grab before the game just to see, and if he doesn't do good, you just drop him again after the game. But he may have, he may be a good speculative pickup this week in particular, just because I think his matchup is, this matchup, that is one that might, give him a chance to start to show out. And he's got a couple good matchups in the next couple weeks, so that's the reason to, maybe grab him before this game, because he might be someone that people look at on the waivers if he has a big game this week and he has a couple of good opponents coming up. I don't remember off the top of my head what they are, Carolina and somebody else. Chicago's defense is startable, I think, in general, and I think this week too. So Chicago's defense seems like a real legit defense. There's a chance that the Colts put up a bunch of points and, the defense could be a bad start. Anthony Richardson's passing is so boom bust. It involves long plays that, it could just be bad for the defense because they could just kind of get that going. You start DJ Moore, I think, because of the volume. If you have a really deep receiver core, maybe you don't start him, and I'm okay with that too. Oh, there's some snow. But I think you do start him generally. If Keenan Allen's back, which I don't think he's going to be, but if he is, I think he's a definite start. Just the way this offense looks right now, that's basically their whole MO is to throw short dink and dunk passes, get Keenan Allen open in the short game, and in a PPR league at least you want to start him. In a non-PPR league, maybe you don't want to start him in general, obviously. Is it nighttime? It is nighttime, or at least sleep time. Anybody else? I mean, Roma Dunze, I still want to wait and see. I'm not looking to start him here. The Colts, apparently their run defense is considered to be bad. I mean, you can look at what Josh Jacobs did to him. I think it has more to do with the opponent's running backs and the opponent's offensive lines that they played because, the Packers have a really good offensive line. The Bears do not have a good offensive line. You know what? I got enough iron to repair this dude with iron. Boom. Consider yourself partially repaired. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't think that just because the Colts have not been good on the run defense previously that means that DeAndre Swift's going to have a big game. But again, I think there's a chance of it. Moving on to the Cowboys at the Ravens. I guess this is a question to me of which of these teams is more angry about losing last time, or about their start to the season in general, and is more ready to change things. I vote both. I vote this is a good, close game for both teams. That it's good for both teams, that is. It's a close game. From the Cowboys' perspective, the biggest question I think is can they put it together in the passing? Can they put it together in the passing game? It's probably a pass-first team in general, and in this game script particularly, probably a pass-first game script. So, obviously CeeDee Lamb, but I really like Ferguson if he plays. And based on last week, I think if he doesn't play, you can count on Schoonmaker to have a big role. I think that I would flex maybe Tolbert. Or Brandon Cooks. I don't know enough about the matchups to really have a favorite out of those two. It seems like Tolbert was a more explosive guy, but Cooks is a possession receiver, so that may come into play this game. Dak, maybe. I'm worried about something similar to last week where he just maybe wouldn't be out there enough. The one thing that in general I perceive that the Ravens are good at is just sustaining long drives. So it may not be a matter of Dak playing bad. It may just be a matter of him not getting enough opportunities to have a really big fantasy day, particularly if they can't get a passing game going, or if the run game is effective and they can work with the run game. I would still not want to start Rico Dowdle for sure or Zeke Elliott. So those are sits for me. From the Ravens' perspective, I expect if they come out ready to kind of kick butt and crush, it's going to be a big game for Lamar Jackson. Even if it's a close game that isn't super high scoring, there's still a potential for Lamar Jackson just because he's the one who puts things together when nothing's working. He's the one who off script really gets valuable plays, whether that's a big rush or a long pass that happens off script. And it feels like this is a Justice Hill game more than a Derrick Henry game. I know I'm seeing that the Cowboys are supposedly bad against the run, but again, how much of that is early season, small sample size? Alvin Kamara went nuts with the Steelers offensive, or with the Saints offensive line just dominating the Cowboys this past week. Can we really count on that to mean that the Cowboys are actually just bad defending the run, and therefore Derrick Henry is going to have a big game? I don't think so. I think it's a Justice Hill game. So I would stay away from Derrick Henry. I mean, relative to how good your team is, you may not have someone better to start over him, but I'd prefer to sit him if I could. And Justice Hill is, of course, a deeper player, but if I'm looking for a flex, I think you could throw him in there, but it's it's still a bit of a risk. I'm not saying he's better than Derrick Henry, but he might outscore Derrick Henry this game. That I do believe. Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely all feel startable. If a shootout is what ends up happening, the passing volume should be fine for those guys. I wouldn't expect either of these teams to get blown out or to fall way, way behind in this game. I don't think either defense, even though both defenses are good, will completely shut down the other's, medium to high scoring attack. So I'm expecting medium to high scoring action happening, and know when it's time to step back, villager. Another day, another trapped villager situation. Moving on. The Dolphins play the Seahawks. For the Seahawks, we get a game where I think they're obviously in a position to win, and they're the favorite by, I don't know, 4 or 5 points here in this game. This is a game for them to continue to improve on what we saw this past week, I think. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that that's what we end up seeing for these guys. Sure. Why are you still hanging around, dude? Shouldn't you be wandering at this point? Starting with the Seahawks. This could be a good game for Geno Smith. I think the Dolphins are just going to be playing from behind with their backup quarterback playing. So, I'm looking at it as a situation where you just go ahead and start the passing offense for the Seahawks. You start DK Metcalf, even though he goes against Jalen Ramsey. I'm not super worried about that. I think he's just a dominant player, and he's going to, be that way this game. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is, if his role is stable and he retains his target share, that's such a good sign going forward. I'm fine with starting him, but Lockett, Noah Fant feel like boom bust kind of plays, so you probably would prefer to sit them in most cases. They might just be able to run it and slow this whole game down. So Charbonnet, if Kenneth Walker doesn't play, I don't love it as much, but I still expect him to do okay. But maybe the passing game will just be the focus, because that's the stronger part of this team when Kenneth Walker's out, at least. And I just think their defense can keep Miami from sustaining drives, so they're going to be out there a lot. So you can start those guys. You can start Geno Smith, in my opinion. It wouldn't be my top choice, but if you're looking for a streamer, I think you could do worse than Geno Smith. From the Dolphins' perspective, going against a tough secondary, I think this is a clear sit Jalen Waddle week. I think you kind of have to start Tyreek Hill. I think one of the things they're going to try to do is do a lot more, not just with the run game, but with the creative quasi run game, which means short outlets, or short passes to screens and stuff. Tyreek Hill getting reverses and doing stuff like that. So I think Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane should be okay. And then Mostert, if he's back, I'd prefer to sit and wait. I don't know that the Dolphins can run the way they wanted to run coming into the season with Mostert. They wanted Mostert to be this early down guy with Tua, and the threat of an accurate, deep ball being the thing that kept defenses honest about Mostert. I just don't think that's going to be the case with Skylar Thompson. So yeah, I would prefer, if I was in any position to, I would prefer to sit Mostert. Moving on to the Lions facing the Cardinals. This is a game that I think it has the highest. I'm sure it's got the highest over under the week. Very much expected by most, including myself, to be more of a shootout type of a game that we're looking at this week. So yeah, it's the likeliest shootout of the week. There's no question about that. Wait, I don't. Sorry, this is not going in the final video. I'm just bullshit and bullshit and bullshit and starting with the Lions. I'm not worried about this defense that they're going up against at all. They should be fine to throw the ball plenty. Maybe Jared Goff is a decent start this week. I certainly think their pass catchers are startable. I don't think you're worried at all about... you're worried about Sam Laporta in general, but I don't think in this game you're worried about those guys. What is wrong with you? You start the pass catchers, the main ones, Jamison Williams, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. I don't know. I think that David Montgomery is the biggest risk, just a risk that he doesn't have as big of a game as he might otherwise. I don't know. They might just be able to run it and do their thing, but I think he's a risk. It's a good run defense. I think Gibbs will be fine. But I just think that, it's not necessarily going to be a Montgomery type of game. It might be. He might just do fine because the offense might just be running on all cylinders here. It is on the road, so I don't know how much you put that into play. For the Cardinals, how much will the Lions pressure, which is severe with Aiden Hutchinson? He had a huge game last week, got like 5 or 6 sacks or something crazy like that. How much will that pressure change things for Kyler Murray and this Cardinals team is a big question going into this one. Obviously, you start Harrison, you start McBride. I think Kyler's a good start because I think even if he has to scramble and use his legs, that he'll be able to do that. So far, the offensive line has apparently been okay at protecting him, but I think this could be a game where they're under a lot of pressure, or he's under a lot of pressure. I don't know how big the run game will be. It feels like James Conner is somebody that you can start even in a shootout, and he's probably fine even if it's a pass-heavy game. I say you start Dortch. I heard that the Lions are vulnerable against the slot. I know Dortch is in the slot sometimes, so I say this is a Dortch game. You start Mr. Dortch. It's a deeper play. It's not someone I'm saying you should start over like Malik Neighbors or something. I'm just saying Dortch might have a good game. So consider Greg Dortch. Moving on to the Panthers at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is... I don't know. I think the Raiders are going to be a decent team this year, and this will be a game where we see the Raiders try to prove that they're a decent team against a bad opponent. I know that the Panthers have Andy Dalton taken over, and people expect that to change things a little. I don't expect it to change things enough in this game. So I think from the Raiders' perspective, you're good to start a lot of Raiders players, maybe even more so than you normally would. You certainly start the defense. I think they're going to try to show out as a team, so they want to get Zamir White 20 carries a game. I think you start Zamir White this game, and I think you hope that they're serious about that he does get 20 carries a game, and that I think Zamir White, this might be the best week he has all season. His first good game of the season, at least, is a high possibility here. He might be a good trade candidate for you to trade away if he has a big game this game, because I'm still worried about his role season long for sure. Unless Dalton has a big game and it's not a dominant Raiders game, that's the one case I could see for Zamir White not having a pretty good game. I don't think Alexander Mattison is someone I'd want to start here, though. He might be fine, but I don't see him as as a priority to go after in any way. Oh, I hit the villager too. The villagers are going to gossip. Come on, go in here. Not you, stupid. You live in here now. Yes. No, what are you doing? Okay. Why is this villager following cows? What kind of... No. TFI. Get the F in. Where was I? Brock Bowers is an obvious start. Devontae Adams is an obvious start. They should be just fine in this game, if not great. This is going to be a good to great opportunity for all the players on that team. You could put Jacoby Myers in there. I think he's going to be more involved than he's been so far, which is still not to say that he's going to be a major factor week to week. But this might be a good game if their offense can just go nuts. But with that said, I don't expect them to have to do that much. So I don't expect Jacoby Myers. I think he's a sit in this game if I had to pick. And moving on to the Panthers, pick up Deontay Johnson for your team if someone dropped him. And then wait and see. Don't start him this week is my opinion. But if you got the stones, I don't hate starting him if you're just like, I'm going to start this dude and rock with it. I mean, yeah, like I said, it takes some guts, but I don't hate the move. I think he's going to be better for the rest of the season if Dalton continues to play, and if Dalton plays well. I think so far the jury's out on whether at this point in his career Andy Dalton is that much of an upgrade over Bryce Young, and maybe this is just kind of a situation where they're going to fire up Bryce Young and get his competitive edge going, and since I heard he was pissed about getting benched, maybe he comes back and starts playing well for this team down the road, which is also fine. It's still better for Deontay Johnson. Anything's better than what we have had so far for Deontay Johnson. So So yeah, oops, I forgot to do this. Moving on to the 49ers at the Rams. This is another one where the 49ers are big favorites over the Rams, and obviously I think for good reason. The Rams team is just decimated right now. It seems like a big game opportunity for the 49ers players that are actually out there. George Kittle being one of the prime kind of early season success stories for this 49ers team. Jordan Mason, of course, being, the surprise MVP of your fantasy team so far. Or at least he's having great games, and I think that'll continue this week. And Brandon Ayuk, of course, benefits from Deebo Samuel being out. I mean, he doesn't benefit in any literal sense, except his fantasy production potentially benefits from that. So I think you start all those guys. I think there's no question those guys are all extremely startable. Purdy may not have to do a lot. I think that's the biggest thing for Brock Purdy, is that he just may not have to do that much. But if he is doing it, I think he'll be doing it well. I'm not worried that he'll have a bad game. I just think he might just not have to do enough to have a good game. The secondary of the Rams is very beatable. So certainly that Purdy and even Juwan Jennings might be starts. I think Juwan Jennings is going to do better than people expect. I think that everyone who thinks that, they're just going to consolidate down to Ayuk and Kittle in the passing game and maybe Jordan Mason, I think that's a mistake. I think that Juwan Jennings is going to have a very legitimate role for this team, for this offense. So I would expect them to get him involved, and I would expect him to have a good game. Yeah. The Rams are down so many players. They're down at least one starter on their offensive line. I think they're down 2 or 3 maybe. Expect pressure, expect sacks, I think, unfortunately, of Matthew Stafford. I just don't love this situation in general for them. It's not ideal for this team. They're probably looking at a season where they just are trying to survive the season. I don't know that they're really a playoff contender at this juncture, at all. I don't know. Kyron Williams is still, I guess, those guys have already been fed recently, have they? It feels like Kyron Williams is startable. I don't love it, though. But I do think he'll be involved kind of as an outlet for the passing game, as well as obviously any attempt they have to run the ball will go through Kyron first and foremost. You can look at Blake Corum as somebody who might have a bigger role this game, especially if they are down by a bunch, if it's a blowout. So it might be, I'm a little bit down on Kyron compared to some other matchups, but, maybe like a little higher than Blake Corum at this point. He's really a wait and see anyway. You're probably not putting him in your lineup unless you're playing in a really deep league or really chasing upside, and even then, I think you could chase upside elsewhere probably better. But if it's a blowout, that's the only thing you can say for the pass catchers. I do think Demarcus Robinson is the guy to have on that team as a pass catcher in this game. But and I think he's an okay start in general. They may have a lot of garbage time. The secondary is apparently a potential weakness for the 49ers, relatively speaking, although in this game I don't know that that's an exploitable weakness if we're really talking about something at that level. But yeah, I would start DeMarcus Robinson, and you could look at one of the other guys, Jordan Whittington or Tyler Johnson, as somebody you could start. Hey, I hit level 30. So yeah, I would sit most of those guys if I could, but I think DeMarcus Robinson's an okay start. And I think Kyron Williams is you probably have to start him. I mean, I'd probably start him over my 3rd or 4th running back on my team in most cases. So I'm fine with putting Kyron in. I think he's so involved in the pass game too. He's one of those running backs who's ultimately also playing significant wide receiver kind of type usage. So yeah, so start Kyron. Moving on to the Sunday night game, we got the Chiefs going against the Falcons. So the Chiefs are obviously favorites in this game, but it's a little closer than you might think. The Chiefs have a couple wins this season, but they're not dominant wins. I think people are still not sure if this Chiefs team is it's kind of like last season. They didn't look like they were dominant, especially early in the season. That may be the same here this season, and I think one of the results of that is that you can look at this as a game where at least the expectation is that the Chiefs won't just be able to dominate and get out to a big lead and just control that game. And there's a good chance that's true. I think losing Isaiah Pacheco does limit the upside of this offense in terms of just like getting out to a big. Whoa, what are you doing hiding over there? Hello. So I think it's Mahomes is looking like a little bit more of a risky play this season so far from fantasy. He's not unrisky this week. If this team can still be a run first team and they can get it done with Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and I guess Kareem Hunt, then it may be a bad week again for Mahomes. It may not be a big game for this passing offense, but I don't know. I get the sense that they'll be able to pass plenty, and that they'll be just fine in the passing game this week. Rashee Rice is an obvious start. I think Kelsey's probably okay. He's going to have his up games. It's not like he's going to be this bad for you in fantasy all season. I don't think he's ever going to be as good as he used to be. So, I would temper expectations in general, but this seems like a game where he could get going. The Falcons' pass defense is apparently decent, but I don't think that's going to stop Mahomes and this passing attack from getting going. I just think that that's something you got to consider. That they're not necessarily that they prefer still. I think to have a run first game plan if they can, and if that works out for them, then they will go about things. That'll be their plan. I think, and I'm going to call it here. This is a Xavier Worthy boom week. I just think he gets used in the run game or like the screen pass or the end around whatever reverse plays. He's going to get used in a couple of those plays, especially with Pacheco out. He might get used more generally as a runner or as in these quasi rush plays. And I think he also has a couple chances at long balls in this game. I'd say go for Worthy this week. I just think he's super boom bust. Nothing's changed there, but I just think this is a boom week. Moving on to the Falcons. Oh yeah, I guess we start the Chiefs kicker too. And I think the Chiefs defense I would be okay if I was trying to hold the Chiefs defense and have them for like their good matchups every week. I'm not worried about streaming. I think the Falcons will do okay, but I think the Chiefs defense is a truly good defense, and that they may get a lot of pressure on Cousins, and we'll see if he's really that mobile at this point. They may not have as much time to throw as he did in the last game, so they probably almost definitely won't have as much time to throw as Kirk Cousins had in the last game. So speaking of the Falcons, I think the defense here may be too good for Cousins to have that time. So it may be a game where, the Falcons line is supposedly good, so maybe it'll be a battle, I would say. But this may be a game where Bijan Robinson especially really, really shines, really sticks out. Just because of the versatility of his usage, kind of like I was talking about with some of the other players. Like he'll get runs, he'll get pass outlet plays, he'll get screens in order to kind of try to counteract some of the blitz and some of the aggression from the Kansas City defense. If the Chiefs get a big lead, this could also hurt, I don't know if it would necessarily hurt Cousins' production, because if the Chiefs are out to a big lead, it might help the pass catchers. My gut tells me that this is going to be Pitts that actually does it this game. There's like historical data that the Chiefs are good against tight ends, but I just think they might need to be passing to shorter routes. That is, the Falcons will need to throw shorter passes. It may be Drake London who benefits the most from that. I'm hoping that it's Kyle Pitts. I kind of feel like maybe both those guys will be okay this game. But there's also, with the Falcons, there's other weapons that also probably are good at shorter routes, such as Ray McLeod, and Darnell Mooney is also somebody who can get open deep, but also is can be involved in a kind of possession, first down, 5 yards at a time kind of passing game, which may be what the Falcons need to do just because of the pressure from the Chiefs. So I don't know. I'm not super high on the Falcons this week, but it's a good chance for them to show that they really belong as a contender, even if they can keep this game close with the Chiefs. We're on to Monday night. It's a Monday night doubleheader this week, starting with the Jaguars at Buffalo playing the Bills. We'll start with the Jags here. I think this is a game where Trevor Lawrence may have time to throw. I don't know. The Bills have a somewhat decent pass rush, but it doesn't seem like that's the strength of their team. and I could be wrong about that, but that's my sense of it. So if he does have time to throw, they may need to throw. I think you can start the pass catchers in a pinch, even though the Bills are known to have a strong, secondary. It's obviously a game that the Bills are highly favored, and it's a situation where there's a good chance that the Jaguars are playing from behind. So with that in mind, I think if you really want to start a pass catcher, I know it's Gabe Davis revenge game, but seriously, it's still probably Brian Thomas Jr. for me. I should talk to the camera like this. It's still probably Brian Thomas Jr. for me. I feel similarly about the tight end. If Evan Engram's playing, which it's looking like he's probably not going to be playing, he's a little further out from playing. Brenton Strange is a perfectly decent dart throw tight end because they use it's kind of a bit like Schoonmaker with Ferguson. It seems like they still use the tight end the same way, and that Brenton Strange here is more like an understudy to Evan Engram when he's healthy. And by healthy, of course, I mean he has not been physically traumatized by injuries enough to miss football games, which currently he is in that status. So just some last words on that. I think that it might be a pass-first game for Trevor Lawrence, which means, he may have sneaky upside, and the same is true for the other pass catchers. I don't know what to think about Christian Kirk. I'm just holding and waiting or dropping if my league is shallow enough or there's somebody on waivers that I really desire. And Gabe Davis is I think still a very boom-bust play this week. Why can you sleep but I can't sleep? Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, they'd both be sits for me, but I think the passing game usage gives them upside. I think probably, obviously, Etienne is still your start, and Bigsby is more of a flex if you have a lack of depth, I guess, in your flex right now, or a deeper league. Moving to the Bills, I think that, I don't know, you obviously start Josh Allen, you obviously start James Cook in this game. The Jags secondary is decent. I guess I like Shakir over anybody else in this game. And Kincaid, I guess. You're looking at, probably not a lot of big explosive passing plays. And if that's the case, then you're looking at these guys as, your shorter routes, but also some potential to get yards after the catch or to get open for big plays. Keon Coleman, you prefer to wait and see, or I do at least. But hey, I think this could be the game where they really try to get him going. Like they're like, okay, let's try to get Keon Coleman going and let's see what he can do as a kind of wide receiver one for this team. Again, I would rather wait, but I think there's a chance of that. So if you throw him in your flex, I think you got a chance for some upside there. Moving on to the last game of the week and the second game of Monday night, the Washington Commanders visit the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are the biggest favorites of any game this week. So take that in mind. Can the Commanders pull off this big upset? I don't know. I don't believe so. I believe that this Bengals team, especially after what happened the last couple weeks, they want to prove that they're a contender and they're going to come out. I don't know if that's why they're so favored, but I think they're just going to come out ready to prove something at home, and it's going to be a blowout, or at least there's a good chance it's a blowout. So for the Commanders, therefore, Brian Robinson is going against what's seen as a suspect run defense, and he's so involved in the passing game, he might be fine regardless. Jaden Daniels, well, you can't say the same thing about the passing game involvement, but similarly, like the suspect run defense is the biggest thing going for him. That and the possibility that they have a ton of garbage time, and if he's not throwing interceptions, then he's racking up points in that garbage time. So I'm fine with starting both of those guys. The Bengals do have a pass rush with Trey Hendrickson, so do expect some sacks, expect some scrambling and off-script plays. So whoever you think that benefits. I don't know if that's a Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz, well, you guys love that. You love to be on what? Expect maybe it's a Zach Ertz game if the pressure's coming and they have to, and Jaden Daniels has to get the ball out on short to medium routes. I think Ertz is the big beneficiary there. I'm still scared about Terry McLaurin and any of the other wide receivers for that matter. It sounds like it is a decent secondary that the Bengals have. So hence I'm looking more at the runners and the short pass catchers, which McLaurin is technically a short pass catcher. I just don't know if he's the guy who gets open when Jaden Daniels goes off script. Maybe he becomes that. I think that's the best case scenario for this team, is that he becomes kind of like what Zay Flowers is for Lamar Jackson, the guy who the quarterback comes to count on when he's scrambling, when he's getting off script, the guy that can just kind of improvise and beat a defender to get open. And we hope that that's McLaurin. I don't believe that it's happened yet, so I'd rather wait and see that he can start to do more of that. Oh, that guy's climbing to the top, isn't he? As for the Bengals, yeah, you start the big ones. This could be a big Joe Burrow game. This could be a big Jamar Chase game. I like Mike Gesicki, at least in the short term. I know they have a bunch of tight ends. I didn't know that Mr. All is that all. It's all, that's all is actually a tight end too. Also, is also a tight end. I thought he was a receiver. But yeah, I think Gesicki, and they have tons of players who can catch balls. I wouldn't start any of them. If T. Higgins is back, I'd start him, obviously, and obviously Jamar Chase, like I said. But Gesicki I'm going to give him a shot. And then as for the running back, this feels like this is Zach Moss's game to shine. They gave him 80% of the snaps last week, and so if they really do see him as the running back one and they want to give him a lot of the work, then this is a good week for him to have a big game. You probably can run against this Commanders team. You probably can pass against them too, for that matter. So start your Bengals and start your engines, because week 3 is underway. Next time we'll go more in the Nether, I guess, and try to do more stuff there, and we'll build some more farms probably. I'll think about that. But I'll be back on Tuesday with another episode. We're going to review all of the Sunday and Monday games, or in some fashion, the ones I watched, and then the ones I didn't watch will have shorter reviews. But I'll still talk about all of the games from Sunday and Monday, and I'll be doing my waiver suggestions also for next week. Coming out of the Thursday night game, I can say definitively that Ty Conklin, presuming he's back on your waivers in a shallow league and he hasn't been picked up, especially like he got maybe picked up and then dropped again after week 2. He's going to be a waiver target of mine for his role on this Jets team. He's the only one that comes to mind right now, as a straight up waiver pick. But Lazard, Mike Williams, those guys may have some value for your team, and they very well may be on your waiver. So on that note, I'm going to end this episode. Oh, and Aaron Rodgers, if he's on your waivers in shallow leagues. He's also, man, a lot of waiver Jets waivers. So thanks for watching. If you have anything you'd like to say about what I could do better here, what you'd like to see that isn't in these episodes, or even just a take that you disagree with here, I hope you'll share it in the comments. Please do comment on the video. That'll help me get better at making them, and it'll let me know that people out there are invested in what I'm doing here. And please also, another way to do that is give the video a like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get updated as soon as these new videos come out every Tuesday and Friday. That's my goal, at least. And I'll be doing other content in the future that's not fantasy football related. But for now, this is a fantasy football show and during fantasy football season. So I hope if you're playing fantasy football that your team's doing good, that you're making smart moves, that you're not overreacting to things, that you're taking in as much data as you can. Go beyond just one voice, one person to listen to. Try to take in different perspectives. And good luck this season. Good luck this week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.